Welcome to Bled Talk, the podcast where insightful conversations meet language learning. I'm your host, Samuel Bledsoe, and on this show, we dive deep into a variety of topics with fascinating guests from all walks of life. Whether you're an English learner looking to sharpen your language skills, or simply someone who enjoys thought-provoking discussions, Bled Talk is something for you. From engaging interviews to solo episodes filled with knowledge and inspiration, join us as we explore the world one conversation at a time. Get ready for a journey of learning, curiosity, and meaningful dialogues. Welcome to Bled Talk. Welcome to this week's episode of Bled Talk. We have a very special guest, Vivi, and she has an Instagram called Vivi In The City, and she talks a lot about cultural differences and creates a lot of great content, and I recommend that everybody goes and watches that and participates. And I don't want to explain too much because I want her to tell us her story. So, Vivi, whenever you're ready, go ahead and tell us your story.
Oi. Since I'm assuming you speak a little bit of Portuguese, right?
Oh, yeah.
Cool. You have to. You're in Curitiba, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I guess, firstly, thank you for having me. I'm excited. And so, so I guess I make, content on TikTok and Instagram. It started more so on TikTok, and then I kind of started putting my content on Instagram as well. But I would say in a nutshell, it's cultural content, like you said. I began with interviewing international students at my college when I was an undergrad. And then when I left school, I started interviewing my parents. And my parents are Brazilian, and I was born in the US. And then the minute I started interviewing my parents, it drew in this Brazilian crowd. And now I would say I'm more of a content creator on TikTok and influencing and content creating on Instagram, just because people care a little more about me on Instagram than they do on TikTok, about me as a person rather than just my content.
But
so yeah.
Oh, very cool. No, that's great. And when would you say that you kind of started building this bigger group of people? I think, are you bigger on Instagram or TikTok, do you think?
I have more followers on TikTok, but I wouldn't say they're as active. I think that's why I said that I'm influencing more Instagram, because I have 95K on Instagram and then 188K on TikTok. But Instagram is where people know me, where I talk about my life, where I put stories all the time.
Right.
So I would say
connect more a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like Instagram is more personable, and then TikTok is just for content. It just shows up on people's For You pages, and people just follow to follow. There are countless creators that I'm obsessed with, but never follow on TikTok. So I feel like Instagram is that platform where people more so care. So I would say Instagram maybe is where people know me from, usually.
And how long would you say you've been? So you said you started when you were an undergrad, right? So how long has that been? How many years you would say?
A year, actually.
A year. Oh, okay.
Exactly a year. In October of last year. I've always enjoyed social media, and I have always enjoyed being on camera, and that's what I want to do in life, but in sports. And then I commentated basketball games at my college. I did all these things within media and social media management for the men's soccer team at my school. And then my senior year, so I had technically 2 senior years because I did 4.5 years in undergrad. And my last semester, so last fall of 2022, I became friends with a lot of more international students. And then the idea, it came of it's probably really strange and weird and really crazy to be an international student in a completely different country, completely different culture, and still having to write in not your native language for most people that are international. So then I asked the question to my friends of, what's the weirdest thing about the US? And then that was the first video that blew up. And those got 1 to 2 million every time I posted. And then I made a video at a basketball game asking what's the hardest English word for you to pronounce? And then that one got like 13 million. And then after that, it just kind of like kept growing.
Yeah. So
So that's like where it
it
started.
was like good videos that just went viral and really helped you grow. And you had mentioned that your parents are Brazilian, but you were born in the United States. So how did that happen? I mean, obviously we know how it happened, but
Well, just
you
kidding.
know,
So well, first of all, like I literally, this is kind of sad. I know nothing about Curitiba, so maybe I might have to ask you some questions about that. But my dad and my mom were both born in Belo Horizonte, Minas Gerais. And have you been to Minas?
I haven't been to Minas yet. I've been to São Paulo. I've been to Paraná, Santa Catarina, Rio Grande do Sul, Amazon,
Wow,
and I think
nice.
yeah, just the south part, and then one northern
Yeah,
state.
I've never been to those places. So like, which is like really, yeah, because like anytime we go back to Brazil, like we only go to Belo Horizonte.
Hey, but
But
Minas
yes,
really good food though.
yeah. So both my parents were born in Belo Horizonte, and my dad moved to the US when he was 19. And then he kind of just went, he always wanted to go. He always wanted to like be better at English. He'd been taking English since he was really young, but that was just his dream. Let's say the American dream, right? And then my mom came to dance, and she was 23, so she was my age. And her dad originally was like, "You're going to go for 6 months, and then we'll reevaluate. I'm only giving you money for 6 months," or something like that along those lines. Because her family had like lost all of their money at that time. And so went from like being really rich to like having, I'm not gonna say nothing, but like to just completely different lifestyle. And then yeah, so they got married in New York, had my
Okay,
brother.
so your parents met each other in New York. No,
Yes. And crazy part, my dad's best friend growing up was my mom's cousin and didn't know. Yeah. So that was like really crazy. So my brother's 27, I'm 23. And then my parents divorced when I was 2. And then my dad remarried another Brazilian. We just can't escape, Brazilians just,
yeah, no. You
everyone's
find
like,
each
your
other wherever
stepmom.
you. Uh-huh.
My friends were like, your stepmom's Brazilian too. I'm like, yep. And so then they had my sister, and my sister is 20. So we're all like somewhat 4 years apart. So that's how they like met. That's how we came to be.
Right. No, that's cool. That's really interesting. That's funny because I have my brother he's about as old as your sister, right? It's the oldest,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
then
No,
I'm
my brother's oldest, my sister's youngest.
okay. Yeah. So my brother is about the same age as your brother, and then I'm a little bit older than you, and then my sister is a year younger than your sister. So
Oh my God.
very very similar years.
Yeah.
Parents were doing the same thing at the same time.
Yeah.
So, uh,
Wait,
very.
where are you from in the US?
I live close to St. Louis, which is like Midwest.
But where? Like what area?
Illinois. Do you know
In
where Illinois is?
I went to college in Illinois and I went to boarding school in St. Louis.
Okay,
I know.
yeah. So like, do you know where Edwardsville is?
Yes.
Yeah, I lived like
That's near like SIUE, right?
yeah, I lived like 10 minutes away from Edwardsville, but Edwardsville is where I went to school, where I grew up. Because my dad, he's from Cahokia, which is in the more southern part, which is like really close to East St. Louis,
Yeah.
and then my mom, she's from Georgia, and then they met in Idaho, and then went back to Illinois. So yeah, I've been from Illinois my whole life. That's where I grew up. That's crazy. That's crazy that
I knew where Illinois was. What do you
I
think I am? An
I did.
ignorant American?
Well, but here's the thing: is that you'd be surprised because I'll be like, "Yeah, I'm from St. Louis." People are like, "Oh, is that close to Los Angeles?" And I'll be like,
Yeah,
"Yeah,
yeah.
that's great. Good question." Uh,
Yes, it is. Exactly, actually, right there. It is
well,
LA. It's the new-
no, that's crazy. That's crazy. I was thrown off that you actually knew like close
Yeah.
places there, but no, that's crazy.
My
Yeah,
college. Have you heard of Principia College?
yeah, uh-huh.
That's where I went to school.
No, very cool. Yeah, dope. No, that's good. Yeah. But anyway, so
All right. That was a tangent.
Yeah, no, but good, very good. So New York, right? Your parents were met there. That's where you grew up, like New York City or just New York State, that kind of
New
area.
York City, Manhattan, downtown girl,
Oh, so like you
through
grew
and
up
through.
there. I went and
Yeah.
visited New York one time. It was at the end of high school. I actually, for those of you who are listening, I did two podcasts about that whole trip that I took with my friends because it was the end of high school and we wanted to do something cool. So we were like, hey, let's all just go do basically like an East Coast trip. And we went out to the East Coast and took a whole day to get there. But then we went to Washington, D.C., then to like Philadelphia. And then we went and did all of that in one day and got to New York. And then we stayed in Manhattan for, I think, 3 days. And then after that, we
Right.
went to Boston. And after Boston, we went to Niagara Falls. And then we went to somewhere in Ohio. I think it was the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And then we went home. We did it in 1 week. We were very broke, so we were able to do it on a good budget, but it was a fun trip. So yeah, I don't know if I would want to live in Manhattan because I kind of like the whole country vibe of not being in a super busy city. But I think Manhattan's cool. I would definitely go back and visit
I
uh,
love it.
again. But yeah, do you miss New York then? Because you said that you're in Spain right now, and do
Yeah.
you kind of miss your home?
I would say I missed New York a lot more when I was in Illinois at school and in St. Louis, just because that's not a city. Like, I mean, in as you know, Prin is not near Chicago at all.
Uh-huh.
And um, right now, I think I've been adjusting to the city life here in Madrid a lot easier just because I came from a big city. The only hard part is like every time I've been in a new environment, usually have known a lot of people just because when I went to boarding school, my brother went there and I had camp friends that went there. And then because I went to Principia High School, and when I went to Principia College, a bunch of my high school friends went to the college. And so I've known people. So this is my first time where like I truly came here without really knowing anyone. So that's been like a really hard adjustment. And like another thing is like through my content that I've been doing this entire time, like one, it makes me so much more grateful and appreciative that my parents taught me a second language growing up. Because if I didn't have Portuguese, I wouldn't have known what to do here in Spain because I don't really speak Spanish that well. Like I can get by, but like if I didn't speak Portuguese, I would literally be like, okay, you know?
Right.
And then like the other thing is like you don't realize how scary and how mentally hard it can be to be that far from your family. And I didn't really understand that until I came here. And like, I mean, I mentioned this earlier, but like, it's even been a little bit of a mental health journey for me of like, being far and like having those like little panic attacks here and there and like anxiety that I hadn't dealt with for a long time. So, these things like it's so glamorous, obviously, like what we post and like, but I'm also very open about like the struggles that I've had since coming to Spain. But like my content has like opened up my eyes so much to so many of the privilege that I had growing up and like being the American and the domestic student at school. But now I'm the international here. And like I have to learn also like, I hope that people can be inclusive with me, even though I'm not a
Yep.
native Spanish speaker. And there have probably been times when I wasn't as inclusive as I could have been when I was the domestic student at my college. You know what I mean? So it just like has made me think a lot about those things.
Yeah. No, definitely. I understand the whole being the immigrant instead of being somebody who receives who's immigrant. Um, especially well, and I think it's also different because your culture at home, I imagine, was pretty Brazilian compared
Mm-hmm.
to the culture of like my family, who my the closest immigrants that I have in my family are from like 1600. And so,
Yeah.
I've had that kind of same American lifestyle, but I know here in Brazil, at least, um, every time I meet like a mom and I tell her about how I live here and I've basically been in Brazil for almost 5 years of my life, they're like, how does your mom react? How does she do this? How does she let you be
Yeah.
there? This and that. And I'm like, well,
Well, it's not
Brazilian moms
normal.
tend to, yeah, I would say Brazilian moms tend to hug their children a lot more and not
You
want,
you don't leave home till you get married.
yeah. And in the US, it's I think I always tell people it's a little different because our our parents normally, at least in where I'm from in our region, they kind of expect their kids to leave their house when they're 18, 19, college age. Sometimes they stay home if they're close, but if they go far away, they're expected to live, and kind of your parents hope that you become successful. And when I say successful, in their eyes, it's you having a place that you can live and having your own car, maybe getting married and just continuing your life. And I think here in Brazil, that's not always the same vision that parents have for their kids. Obviously, they want their kids to be successful too, but a lot of times they want them to be successful, but close to home
Yeah.
at the
It
same.
is really different. And like, I mean, I've talked about, what was it? One of my videos that got a lot of views on Instagram that made a lot of people follow me was I started with, I literally have it ingrained in my brain, the exact words that I said. I was like, for anyone that doesn't know, I'm American, but my parents are from Brazil or something. And like rules that just made sense living in a Brazilian household. Like I made that video.
I saw
And,
that actually a long time ago.
and I was going to say, like, so you grew up with American parents in a very American, a very, how would I say, cookie cutter, probably stereotypical American household,
Yeah,
right?
the whole traditional, like,
Yeah. Yeah. Like
a
how
little bit
there's such thing, traditional. Yeah.
yeah, uh-huh.
And so what would you say, what were some things that, because you said your wife is Brazilian, right?
Yep.
She's like from Brazil,
Uh-huh.
like she was raised in Brazil.
From
So what
Brazil,
are
full-blooded Brazilian.
yeah, yeah. So what would you say are like some things that you had to adjust to, especially
Um,
in a house? Like
well,
what?
something that's interesting that you even I think you talked about this in your video, is that we in the US, I mean, we have like clothes that are for like normal occasions, and then you have like nice clothes. But like in Brazil, I always tell people it's crazy because like you have clothes for wearing at home, but then you also have
But
clothes for wearing at home when you're going to clean. But then you also
yep.
have clothes that you're supposed to use to go play sports. And then you have clothes that you're supposed to use to go out to stores, clothes for church, clothes for there's a different set of clothes for each and every type of thing. And if you use the wrong outfit for the wrong occasion, you're out of place and you don't fit in. And
That's
um,
hilarious.
it's funny because like in the US, people go to Walmart and sometimes you're like, is that acceptable? But here, no, if I went to the store and I was wearing just a t-shirt and athletic shorts, people stare at me and they're like, that guy needs to get his act together. He needs to
Yeah. Everything is an
understand.
outing. You go to the airport, it's an outing. You wear nice clothes. You go here, it's like it's an adventure. You know what I mean? And like
Uh-huh. And you need to look
and
your best when you go on your adventure.
yes, and like I it was so funny, like the comments but that's really funny that you said that. Like the outfit and the cleaning is I think the best one. Like you have
Oh,
certain
yeah.
clothes that the clothes that from like 10 years ago that are have holes in the shorts and whatever, like holes in the butt part, like you wear that to clean. So, and another thing is like, so most American bathrooms don't have a drain, right? Like maybe a
Just a
shower, but they don't
bathtub and that's it. Yeah.
have. So there, and I'm pretty sure most places, most apartments have them. There's a drain because when you wash the floor, you don't just
No, I would say,
squeak it with
oh,
Lysol.
that's
You wash it. You have the bucket of water. You pour it in. You're wearing your Havaianas. Like dia de limpeza. Like you are cleaning that floor.
exactly.
So different.
Yeah, I always tell people that's one of my favorite differences is that I was like, here in Brazil, like you don't get a mop out and just kind of wash your floor. No, they like get a bucket, you drench your floor, kind of turn it into like a small lake, and then you scrub it with a brush or a broom if you have one, and you just throw all kinds of chemicals and it comes out really nice. I tell people
And it's
so
not
much.
manual labor. It's not
Where?
manual labor. It's expected of you.
Yeah, it's just how it's supposed to be. And honestly, it's nice. I tell people I like it all the time. Now,
Mhm.
there are other things too, but like I thought it was funny that you talked about the airport because right after I got married, I had to go back to the United States because I had to do something for my visa. And the US is very bureaucratic with their stuff. Like they're kind of behind on how you get your papers and stuff. And I went to the airport and you know how well you live in New York, so I don't know how long the flight was for you usually, but for me, I had to fly from Curitiba to Sao Paulo to Dallas or to Miami and then St. Louis. So it was a 3 leg flight. It was always like, 16, 17 hours of traveling. And so I went in a t-shirt and athletic shorts because I wanted to be comfortable the whole time.
Mhm.
And my wife was not happy with me. She was like, how are you going to go to the United States wearing those clothes? And I was like, if you have been to the United States, you would know that nobody there is dressed super nice. And then, it was just a huge conversation. We laugh about it now, but it was one of those things that, like, to me, it just didn't make sense. But to her, it made all of the sense to
Totally.
correct it.
Totally. No, I get all of that. 100%.
Yeah.
It's very
And
different.
for you, like growing up, and I know maybe even in New York, it's even a little different because New York is kind of like the hub of different cultures. But like, how would you say it differed from your friends that were, just the typical New Yorker
Yeah.
families? Would you say that there were things that you kind of were impressed by, or was there something that you kind of wish that you had in your house but you didn't, or vice versa?
Um, I would say there's so many answers to this, honestly. It's hard to generalize because I do have people in my Brazilian family that are a little more laid back, but they're
Before,
still strict.
yeah,
I would say rules like my mom, if the parents weren't home, I wouldn't be allowed to go there. Um, Cleaning, like I was always the friend that was like the most clean. And I'm not just saying like not just clean as in like hygiene, but like knew how to make a bed well, like knew how to
right,
fold a towel, like did my laundry. And again, there's a lot of Brazilians that don't do their laundry because it's normal to have,
right. Normal to
washing
have
machines.
somebody,
They got to have a housekeeper.
right,
Um, but I would say just like I'm trying to think of a specific example, but just the like mindset was very like immigrant. Like it was hard, especially with my dad. It's hard. He'll be like, I came here when I was 19 and no one was helping me. You know what I
right.
mean? And it's like,
Gives you the whole,
yeah,
when I was a kid, I went to school barefoot,
yeah,
walked 5 miles to school uphill both
yeah.
ways. The whole,
So we're like, so I would say like maybe that part, probably just like the classic like Brazilian mom phrases, and just like cleanliness and that kind of stuff. And like, I don't know, like again, like there could probably be so many specific examples, but I would say my mom was always like a little stricter than every other American parent that was like in my life. That was probably the biggest difference.
I think that's a wonderful answer. Um, wonderful is in like, really good comparison. And
Yeah.
I think another question I have for you, and this one I would say is a little more serious, is as a child or as a daughter of immigrants in the
Mhm.
U.S., I wonder how it was for you to kind of see the interaction between your parents and your typical American, because so many people here in Brazil and in other countries too, we always hear about how some people have this idea that Americans don't like immigrants, and there's other people who have the idea that Americans just love immigrants, and other people who say that it's really hard, people who say that it's great. How was it for you kind of being an American citizen, being born in the United States, but still having that tie with immigrant parents and kind of watching their interaction with the rest of the country?
Um, Firstly, there's like kind of two parts to this. So one, it's really different depending on the color of your skin. Firstly, so my parents both are white, so like that, you wouldn't look at my parents and say they are immigrants.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like based off of like first look, you wouldn't think that. Again, because like based off of skin color, and I'm not saying like every person of color is an immigrant, but
Americans tend to see.
but yeah,
Interesting. I did a podcast. Sorry to cut you off, but I did a podcast with an English teacher who both of her parents were immigrants from Argentina, and they're both white. And she would tell people, my parents are immigrants and they're from Argentina, and they would tell her, they'd be like, but you're white, and like
yeah,
that was
they don't
such a big.
understand.
And I was
They
like,
don't
yeah,
hurt me. And another, okay, so unfortunately, like there's like I'm not gonna like politics, but like there is, so Brazilians are we are Latina.
right.
Brazilians are also, by the way, I don't know if you've noticed this, Brazilians are pretty racist as well, and that is very clear. And you don't realize it. Even in Belo Horizonte, my city is like pretty, like very predominantly white. And if you see the color of the servers, they're usually not white. Like, ever. And so in the US, who are the people doing the shitty jobs? The immigrants, right? The people that come from different countries. So when I used to tell some Brazilians at my school, like, we're all Latino, they'd be like, we're not Latino, we're Brazilian. I'm like, you are Latin. I was like, you are Latino. They just can't accept it because there's this negative connotation to it. And in the US, growing up, I remember I used to always check the box, like white, Caucasian, and like just white and white, right? Because there's ethnicity and there's race. So like mine's like white, Latina. And then, right, I'm like, not Hispanic, Latina. And so I never understood what being Latina meant. And I would always be like, I'm not Latina. I'm not Latina. Like, I would literally get mad at my brother every time he'd be like, we're Latino, right? And I'm just like, but what do you mean? Like, we're not. Because I thought it was so bad to be Latino. And like, the word, that's like awful. And it's because of where I grew up. Because in the United States, when you think of a Latin person, a Latin person, Hispanic person, you think uneducated, possibly undocumented, illegal, right? Those are the things that come up, whether we like to admit it or not. Those are the things that come up because that's what we're fed, right? Like, we think things because of what we're fed and because of what we consume. So I was always like, but I'm not Latino. Like, I would be offended if someone called me that. And then I finally opened my eyes and was like, hold up. Like, it is the most beautiful thing to be so proud of your culture, proud of your background. And I'm so grateful that I got past that little ignorance phase of my life. And of course, I'm learning every day still. But like, that was probably the biggest thing, was like learning that being an immigrant is not an insult. One, being Latina or being called Hispanic should never be an insult. And you should be like flattered if someone calls you that. And like, you just should never be like ashamed of like where you come from, your culture, who your parents, you know what I mean? And like, that took me a long time. Like, trust me, that took me a long time to realize. And again, like, even through my content, through making videos, like, for example, I made a video and the caption, or like how do I say, the cover of it said, asking immigrants in New York the hardest English word for them to pronounce. The comment section was like, don't say immigrants. Why would you say immigrants? I'm like, that's not an offensive word. Did you know that?
Right. Like, why are you offended
a
by
lot
that?
of bad word, So it's all these people thinking that I'm making fun of them. And I'm just like, that's not wrong. You're migrating from to somewhere else, right? That's not your country. How is that wrong to say? So it's like stuff like that.
Great. I had a friend who she was from California, and we were talking about something, and I had asked her about Mexicans, and she got offended. She's not Mexican. She was, white, and that she was not no Hispanic heritage, but she got offended. And I was like, well, what do you call a Mexican in California? She's like, we call them Spanish speakers. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. I was like, because somebody from Mexico is a Mexican. She's like, no, but that's racist. And I was like, no, it's not. I was like, when I came to Brazil, people call me American or the estadounidense, the whole,
Oh,
there's a whole discussion on
okay.
that. But there's different types of things, and it's not offensive. Like you said, there's some of these words for some reason have so much baggage that doesn't need to be there. And I think something else that I tell people is like, sometimes we forget what it truly means to be proud of being an American. And the reason why I say that is because any true American understands that the United States is immigrants. That's what it was, and that's what it is, and that's what it's going to continue to be. And it's a group of immigrants who celebrate their culture together. And I think a lot of people don't understand that anymore. A long time ago, that used to be, people would go to an Italian fest, or they would go
Right.
to the Hispanic fest. They would have German, have Oktoberfest and all of these different things to celebrate different cultures. And now the world is kind of getting to a point, not just in the US, here in Brazil, it's the same thing. People, they've kind of started to reject other groups of people. And I'm like, that's not us. That's not who we are. We're so, the American dream is you should be able to come here and grow and be able to be who you want to be. And so I think that's a really, it's a sensitive topic, but it's one that's necessary to talk about and kind of bring
Yeah,
to life.
I mean, I
A lot of
wouldn't
people.
even say it's sensitive. Like, we make it sensitive. It's not
Yeah,
like
it
you know
doesn't
what I
have to
mean?
be, right? But some
Yeah,
people,
like, I don't really know. It's usually people who don't understand that make it sensitive, being
yeah,
like, also, um, yeah, a lot of times in California, people that are from California, because they're so close to Mexico, obviously, like, they'll just assume that, like, every construction worker is Mexican or every waiter is Mexican. You know what I mean? Or like, oh, I need a Mexican to do this. Like, no, it's not. You know what I mean? Like, sure, like people take joke, like when people make jokes. Like I've had friends make jokes, but like we can't take it too far. You know what I mean? Like it's very like you can't always tell when someone is from where they're from, and like I don't think it's bad, but we just can't always assume that like every person that is Hispanic in the U.S. is like from like the DR or the Dominican Republic or Mexico. You
right.
know?
Like there's so much more to the world. And, and I think that kind of applies everywhere, because I would say, obviously, I don't get judged here like I do, like, a Hispanic person would get judged in the United States.
You don't get,
But
what do you really think? Say you don't get judged there?
no, I'm not saying that I don't get judged, but I don't get judged in the same way that they get judged.
Okay.
Because Americans we don't get seen as that person who does the jobs that nobody else wants to
Oh,
do.
yeah. No.
The
Yeah.
the issue is when I came here, I mean, and you've seen where I'm from. It's not like a super rich place. We don't have you know what I mean? Like, I'm from a very small town
Working
that most
class.
people, yeah, working class, like lower middle class. And then I come to Brazil, and since I'm an American, I don't know what it means to struggle. I don't know what it means to have problems. I don't know what people go through, basically. And
Yeah.
so you kind of, it's the same judgment. People come to me and they talk to me like, I've had people who are super rich come and talk to me about problems that rich people have. And I'm like, I don't understand what you're talking about. I'm like, just because I'm from the US doesn't mean that I have money. And,
Yeah.
you know, and then also it's the whole, I don't know if you've experienced this in Spain at all yet, but sometimes people kind of assume that you are America, right? They're like you end up becoming the representative of the United States for that one person.
And they treat you a little.
Yeah, they treat you that way. And, you know, I'm not saying, well, all Americans are treated bad or whatever it may be. But the thing is that we all kind of need to realize that we're people. We all have different cultures. We have different backgrounds. And you don't need to judge somebody until you know who they are. Then you can judgment. But, don't be like, oh, well, Vivi, she's from the US. And so she doesn't know what it's like for me who came here. Well, they don't know that Vivi has Brazilian immigrated to New York, who
Oh
went
my God, I get that all the time.
who went through all of these things, and just so that she could have the life that she has. And the same thing here. People will be like, well, Sam doesn't know what it's like to have to suffer. But the thing is, they don't know what my parents had to go through. They don't know
Yeah.
what it's like to be in the US. They don't know that poverty exists in the US. Poor people, there are plenty of people who don't have money in the United States. And
Yeah. In in a lot of my videos of what I'll ask people the hardest English word to well, first of all, anything you post, I usually get more backlash on TikTok than I do on Instagram. But like, people find a problem with everything.
yeah, oh yeah, they do.
And
Don't worry.
I've like, you know, first off, when I started interviewing my friends at school, those were like some of my best friends I had known for years. So like we laugh together, we make fun of each other. It's normal. So like in the videos, they'll like say the word wrong, we chuckle together. We're like, like no, this is how you say it, whatever. And they're like, why are you like being so rude? Stop laughing at them. They're like, I bet this little white girl, she doesn't even know anything except for English. And my mom would always respond and be like, actually, she's fluent in 2 languages, learn and understand Spanish and is learning French. Like before and my mom would like clap back at like every single comment. And I'm like, Mom, like, thank you.
Thanks, Mom, but please.
We're gonna let the haters hate, and we
Right.
can't like do it. And so my mom used to like always read them, but yeah, people always assume in those videos they're like, this little white girl, she doesn't know anything, and I'm like, oh yeah, want me to say something right now in Portuguese?
Right. I'll challenge you in a second language. Well, and yeah, it's weird how people assume so many things. And I guess unfortunately, maybe fortunate, I don't know, I look like an American. Like I have the complexion of an American Midwestern guy. And so like they'll talk to me and I'll talk about something. They'll be like, well, you can't talk about that. You don't know anything. And I'll be like, well, you don't understand where I'm from. My wife is from the Amazon. I've been speaking Portuguese fluently for like 5 years. I've been living in your culture and I study a lot more about Portuguese than you do. And so like, there's a lot more to how things are than just what people see. But like you said, they're always going to find something to hate. They're always going to find other things. I've always been somebody who's very like, I like to say that I like to burn people in a classy way, if that makes sense, like to kind of be very educated and formal on how I respond, but make sure that it's something that they can't respond to.
Sure.
But, eventually, like you said, you just have to get to the point where you're like, you know what, it's not worth my time. Let them comment, because
you're never gonna know anyone's like full story about anything, and like social media isn't everything, and I've learned that. And like, again, like you just never know what anyone's dealing with. Like you're not gonna obviously post every single thing about your life on social media, and like I've been learning that more and more on Instagram. And I even got like a lot of people like being like, oh, you haven't posted anything about, like, this is like when it began with like the bombings in Israel. Like that's when this began. Like before, like the hospital in Gaza, like all those things, they were like, you're not posting anything for Israel. Like, and like multiple people said this to me. And like it is not, I don't owe anyone anything on my Instagram. Like I can do it in different ways without posting something on my story, and people just like don't ever fully know anything. And that's just like one example, but like just in general, like people think they know you based off social media, and like even like apart from like content creation, like, they'll be like, people know you a lot better than you know them because you're posting your life on social media, right? Like people listen to you talk on your podcast. They probably know your personality more than you would know the person DMing you. So it's not your fault that you're not responding. It's not your fault that you're not giving warmth back, something like that, And so like, I also have to like, hopefully people understand that too. Like when they're reaching out to like creators on Instagram, that's like, you might know us, but like, we don't really know you, So that's just a,
yeah. No, but
but
it's a good thing to say, because I think so many people, and I've talked with a lot of content creators who they say the same thing. They're like, there's people who send me videos and they say they feel like they know me, they feel really close to me, and it's like, well, I mean, it's cool, but I don't know you. I don't know everything about you.
Even start to like you romantically. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and you're awkward. You're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Like,
yeah,
I'm not responding, and then it's even worse if I respond. It's getting their hopes up. So it's like,
you just ignore it, and you're like, yeah, well, sorry, no. I just delete the messages, because I'm like, I've told people before, because one time I told my wife about it, and she was like, well, you should post a video that says that you're married. And I was like, what's that gonna fix?
Yeah.
Some people are like, oh, that's great, you have a cute family, your baby's adorable, but like,
wait, do you have a baby?
I do. I have a son. He's
What?
Yeah.
Stop! He's gonna be a little Brazilian baby. That's so cute.
He's a little Brazilian baby, but he's whiter than sour cream. He's gonna be in that same position that you that you were in. So maybe one day you'll be able to give him some pointers and be like, hey, this is how you're gonna act. This is how you act like a Latino, because that's what he is, right?
Yeah, but that's so cool though. Like,
Yeah.
I'm really hope that, I mean, obviously English is your first language and Portuguese is your wife's first language, or her first language, but like it'll be easier, I think, for him to learn it's a boy, right?
Yeah.
Him to be more, he'll be definitely so fluent in both. Like it's
100%.
always easier to be raised in a different country outside the US, because in the US, like everything is so American and like so English, you know what I mean? Like, and then in other countries, you're automatically already learning English in school. Like, I'm assuming your son's gonna learn English when he goes to school, if you guys decide to stay in Brazil. So like, oh my God, that's so cool. That's like such a blessing that he'll know English and Portuguese.
Yeah, I'm excited for him. And I told my wife too, I was like, well, we need to make sure that he doesn't just stay with Portuguese and English. I want him to do Spanish and French and kind of those are the big four those are the ones that I'm working on. And so that's kind of the idea. But
what's his name?
His name is Jeremy, which is
Jeremy.
It's my dad's name. And so we decided on Jeremy because in Brazil it's unique, it's different, but it's not impossible to pronounce. And
Jeremy.
That's how they say Jeremy. And then in the US it's a normal name, and so it's kind of easy, because it was really hard to find names when you and your for your husband, whenever you guys get married and you have a baby, and then you're like, okay, let's think of a name.
I've thought about this.
Yeah, you're gonna go through all of these names, and he's gonna be like, no, I don't think so. And then he's gonna give you all of these names. You're gonna be like, no, probably not. And then eventually you're gonna be like, well, we can't call him, like, we can't just give him a number. So we need to think of a name. And for us, because I would give her names, and she's like, oh, those are dog names, because here in Brazil people give their dogs American names. And then she'll give me names that she would hear from like TV and whatnot. And I'm like, I have friends with those names, and I don't want to remember them when I talk.
Yeah, no, that'd be hard to like actually come up with a good name that you both agree on, and that's culturally friendly to both.
Yeah, and it's gonna, your name really helps define a lot in your life, and I don't think people really know that. But like, for example, my favorite superhero for a long time was Superman, and sole purpose is because he has a big S on his chest, and my name is Sam, and so I was like, we're friends, we have the S, so it's okay. But yeah, great. Well, and I've really enjoyed our conversation, and we're getting close to the end. So I do have one final question for you before we finish. And that question is, speaking to Brazilians or even the Americans who listen to this, like my mom and my dad, just everybody who's going to hear this, what would you give as advice for somebody who is either going to live in another country or to visit another country? Not necessarily with language, because, language, I've talked about that before, but with you having parents that are immigrants, but also being born in the US, but also going to Spain and having a lot of that connection with people around the world. What's a good tip that you could give somebody to kind of be more receptive,
Yeah.
be a better person?
So I'm going to give my tip, and I'm going to give my mom's, because my mom shared this on Instagram actually a few weeks ago. So my mom said that for anyone, especially Brazilians going to the US, you usually want to stay in your bubble. You go straight to Queens. You live in like a Brazilian neighborhood. You live anywhere you go. Usually Brazilians stick together. But really try hard to, like, you're moving to, like, have a new life, to experience something different than your culture. Like, be open to learning the language. Like, don't just stay in your bubble of your culture and your language. And I think a lot of immigrants do that, especially when they move to the US. And again, this is like coming from my mom's mouth, someone who left Brazil and went to the US. So just like to put yourself in situations, to move into situations where you are forced to speak your not native language, and it'll only help you at the end, because you meet so many people that have been in the US for 30 years and their English is like maybe at like a 4 out of 10. You know what I mean? So that's hers. For me, just in general, it's kind of on that too, but like, I think you just never truly understand a situation until you're in it. So like going life through empathy is probably the biggest advice I could give, because again, I was the little white girl in high school. I was that girl in college. You know what I mean? Like, and then now I'm obviously still white, but now I'm the person who doesn't speak the language, and it's been hard. I've felt a little bit that people have laughed at me because I don't speak Spanish perfectly. So it's truly like opening your heart and like having so much empathy for people, and like making an effort. I think people just want to see others make an effort to learn their culture. I think here in Spain, people want to see me make an effort to learn their language, to be in their culture. And it could be really scary. Like, it's hard for me to like make mistakes. That's something in my life in general. Like, I hate making mistakes. Like, I feel like people will just laugh at me. But then if someone makes a mistake in front of me, why would I laugh at them? You know what I mean? So I think being open to the culture that you're in, right? You moved for a reason. I didn't go to school in England so I could speak English. Like, I'm here because I want to learn something else. So definitely go out of your comfort zone and lead life through empathy.
Good. I love that. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for your response. I think that's a really good note to end on. Kind of, I would always tell people, sometimes you're going to meet someone who's from a different country and they just need a hug. They need someone. They just need a hug, and they need to know that they can cry or they can laugh if they want to. And nobody knows what you're going through until you go through it. And so I meet people who are scared to death about these new experiences and these new things. And I always tell them, I'm like, look, it's hard, but we've done it. And, I always tell people, I was like, if I can do it, you can do it. Like,
That's so cool that you did that, really.
And so I'm like, it's a difficult adventure. When I came to Brazil, I didn't know how to speak Portuguese. I kind of came by myself in a way.
Nada.
And no, nothing, nada. And there was definitely nights that I just bawled my eyes out because I was ready to go home. But I was too proud to go home, and so I didn't.
You
And
did it. Now you're
exactly.
married, have a little baby there.
Right. It all paid off in the end. And so, same thing with everybody else. Like you said, just be empathetic and try to accept people. And if you are that person going somewhere, don't worry about being accepted. Just do it.
That's my advice. Go, leave.
Right.
I'm not even kidding. Like, and every single person that wants to stay home and I have friends that stayed home for college. Maybe you did too. Who knows? Leave, flap your little wings, and go out into this beautiful world.
Right.
That is a little crazy and makes us scared, but there's so much beauty to it as well. So like, go experience.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much, Vivi, for everything.
Obrigada você.
And thank you everybody else for making it to this point in the conversation and listening to everything. And hopefully in the future, Vivi, you'll come back and we can continue talking about something. Maybe you'll have some updates about what it's like.
Maybe we'll do a live one in Curitiba.
We could definitely, one day we can do something live and it'll be fun. But thank you everybody. Thank you, Vivi. And everybody have a wonderful day or night, depending on what time you're listening. And we'll see you next time on Bled Talk.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to Bled Talk. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us for more content. We are on all of the popular podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcast, and we're even on YouTube. Don't forget to send in your questions and your suggestions. Thank you once again, and have a great day.